Hello and welcome to another program with Pastor Frank Lewis. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the subject, you can feel again. Remember last week we talked about everyone that I have had any relationships with or been in my groups or been in my church. I have found that almost all people that I've had contact with have shut down their emotions in one form or another. In other words, they may not be totally numb, but they can't feel the way that they were created to feel. They can't have the emotions and they can't name them. See, a lot of people in my groups, they tell me what they think. They tell me a story from their head, or they tell the group a story. But when I ask them, how does that make them feel, they give me a story. They give me a head knowledge, not heart knowledge. And so one of the things that I believe is that most every single person, because of the trauma of childhood, because of all the different pain of childhood that came from being raised in emotionally dysfunctional households, by parents that are emotionally wounded, what ended up happening is that children had to shut down their emotions in one form or another. And what happened is they couldn't control their emotions, so they got afraid of them, and they ended up suppressing their emotions. I have people in my groups that many times tell me, I can't remember past the age of 5. I can't remember past the age of 4, 3, whatever. And so that's suppression of emotions. And so they don't feel the way God wants us to feel the joy, to feel the passion, to feel the excitement that's available to them. And so today we're going to talk about how do we resurrect feelings? I'm going to give you practical steps on how to be able to feel again. And it's going to be something you may want to take notes on, and it's going to be something we're going to dig into. But before we do, I want to talk to you just briefly about my book. This is the book that I wrote, and it is called The Key. And what is it the key to? It's the key to emotional healing. And in order to raise emotionally healthy kids, you're going to have to be, as parents, emotionally healed. If you're not emotionally healed, your chances of raising emotionally healthy children is really very slim, if you're even able to do it at all. The other thing I have is I have a YouTube channel called it's the @ Fortifying Families 4, Fortifying Families 4. And you can look it up, hit the playlist, and you'll find 22 videos on marriage, how to have a great marriage, and 12 videos or 14 videos, I can't remember which, on parenting children. So be sure to look at that and be sure to get the book. You can get it on Amazon, The Key. So now we're going to look into, okay, what does it mean to be emotionally disconnected? We're going to review that just quickly, and then we're going to dig into the steps, actually look at the steps. And so emotional disconnection or shutting down is, is not the absence of feeling, it's the absence of your access to the feelings. You have the feelings, but you just don't express them. You just take them inward, and you just suppress them. And so it's not the absence of feeling, it's just not being able to get in touch with the feelings. So people who seem cold, distracted, shut down, or unaffected are really oftentimes very, very sensitive, or at least they were in their childhood. And so what happened is they shut down because of the environment, because of the way that they were raised by dysfunctional parents. And the parents did not accept and approve of their emotions, so they didn't emote. Because if you got punished for having emotions, if you got criticized for having emotions, if emotions were called weak, you're not going to be giving out emotions, because that's going to be a real problem. The problem for emotionally shut down people is that in their emotional world has been buried under layers of survival patterns, coping mechanisms, and unhealed pain. See, that's what keeps people from being able to express themselves, is those layers. Emotional numbness forms when the heart concludes, the mind and the heart working together conclude that feelings are too dangerous to be expressed, they're too painful to be expressed, and feeling will cost me something I do not want to pay the price for. So, you ended up, shutting down your feelings. And so it's important to understand that emotional numbness is going to be such a problem trying to have good relationships when you're emotionally numb. You can't have good relationships. And so before a person becomes emotionally numb, they were once, like I said, they could have been very sensitive, but they got that knocked out of them, or they needed to suppress because it was very dangerous. And so overwhelming emotions that are not supported, that are not that are punished, or they are ridiculed, or a person, that what happens is when your emotions are ridiculed, when they're not supported, when you're punished for having emotions, you're not going to, like I said before, you're not going to be very emotional. You're not going to express emotions. And so it started out, as I said last week, started out with self-protection and became self-sabotage. And so if you grew up in a chaotic, unpredictable home, you're going to be more likely to be emotionally shut down. If your emotions were dismissed, like if your father or mother said you don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about. Stop crying. Stop feeling, in other words. People that are emotionally shut down learn to be responsible caretakers and peacekeepers. They had to keep peace maybe between mom and dad, or they had to caretake. My wife's father got into alcohol binges, and he just, it was very, very hard for her because she had to be the peacekeeper. And so they experienced painful trauma or repeated disappointments. They were taught that vulnerability equals weakness, and they lacked emotional connection. So what happens is that they shut down, and they end up they want to protect themselves when they are emotionally shut down. So why feelings become dangerous to an emotionally numb person, to a person that's emotionally disconnected? Why feelings feel so unpredictable? Why are they such a problem? Well, emotionally numb people, people like yourself, they didn't decide to shut their emotions down. Their nervous system, their brain working with their heart and their nervous system shut them down, and they're below conscious thought. So your feelings were never validated as a child. You were overwhelmed as a child. This is what causes this suppression to take place. Your feelings were punished. You weren't comforted when you felt. Your parents got upset with you for having emotions. There was painful trauma over and over, and your nervous system just couldn't take it. Your brain said, enough is enough, we're not feeling anymore. And so your heart became hardened. And the only answer was to stop feeling. So you became emotionally detached to be able to survive everything you were going through. That's what happens to children, and then children become adults and they have problems feeling. You may get angry and think that's feeling. Well, most people that can't feel too well, they know mad, they know sad, they know, pain, but they don't know how to express the other emotions that really bring quality of life. And so feeling again signals danger. Why? Because that's what happened to as a child. And so, you don't want to go through that again. Nobody wants to go through that pain again. And so you're likely to feel anger if you're likely to feel, but you can't express it. And so, if I have feelings, I might fall apart is a belief of people that are shut down. If I feel again, I might be rejected. If I feel again, I might be considered weak. If I feel again, I might feel pain. And that is probably exactly right. You will feel pain, but it'll be in small little increments is what we're wanting to get to. If I feel again, I won't be able to handle it. If I feel again, I'm just going to fall apart. That's what people believe. I had a lady in my group last Sunday, and she said, if I feel again, I'm really afraid I'll just fall apart, completely fall apart. I can't afford to do that. These beliefs were necessary to survive, but they're not good now because they keep people from relationships. So your healing from emotional shutdown requires teaching your body that feeling emotions is no longer dangerous for you. Feeling again is no longer dangerous. That cannot come overnight. That has to come in small increments. So learning to feel again is possible, but it must be done very slowly, and it must be done so that you don't get overwhelmed. Because if you get overwhelmed, you just suppress them, and it'll be worse than it was before. So emotional numbness is not healed by you forcing the feelings. You can't force these feelings out. It is healed through gently reconnecting with your body being more aware. So that's what's really important. And you need emotional truth. What's emotional truth? Well, what am I feeling? When I ask people in the group, how did that make you feel? I'm asking them, what are you feeling? And most of the time, they can't tell me. So we're going to go at a slow pace. And, you're trying to break through the crust or the hardness of your heart. Your heart didn't get that way because you wanted it to get that way. It got that way because you had to survive. And so learning to feel again must be done incrementally, slowly. Healing begins as you give yourself permission to feel again. You've got to say to your mind, and your heart will then pick it up, I want to feel again. It's important for me to feel again. So the first thing you need to do is reconnect with your body. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is emotions affect your body. If I get angry, my heart starts to race, or my heart gets. If I get sad, then I might feel depressed. I might feel. The body always feels, and what the emotion is causing it to feel. And so you need to reconnect with your body first. To be able to feel, you must let your emotions affect your body. You've got to let your emotions affect your body. And so here's what you can do to begin this process. I'm going to give you practical steps that you can do. You can do deep breathing. You know why? That begins to wake up the emotional centers. You can ground through touch. Grounding through touch, what do I mean by that? You take a hot mug and you put your hands around it. You feel the warmth or the heat or even the pain of a hot mug. Why? Because your body's feeling that. And then you can begin to reconnect. You can feel the softness of a blanket and so that gives you that kind of feeling. You can have gentle movement. Walk. You don't run, you walk gently, and you stretch and you do light exercise. Not heavy exercise, but light exercise. You get quiet. You get quiet. And what does that do when you get quiet? It causes you to be able to get in touch with your body. Get in touch with what your body's telling you. Your body is going to be telling you what you're feeling. It's very, very important to get in touch with your body telling you what you're feeling. And you can also place your hand on your heart. That causes emotions to start to come alive again, or your stomach, mostly your heart. So your body needs to be listened to. You need to listen to your body, but you got to get quiet. You got to get quiet to be able to listen to your body. Now, you need to develop, the next step is you need to develop an emotional vocabulary. What do I mean by that? You need to be able to put names on your emotions. Why is that important, you might ask? Is because if you can name an emotion, you give it the opportunity to feel the emotion. In other words, you give it permission. You give that emotion permission to exist. You don't suppress it. And so you've learned to just say, well, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy. Happy is not a feeling. So one of the things, those are just basic, mad or sad. You need to be able to have a vocabulary for your things, for your emotions. And what did I feel today is a great start. This starts with simple awareness. What did I feel today? What did I feel when that person cut me off? What did I feel when that person said hello and smiled at me? What made my body react, and did something take the energy out of my body, or did it give me energy? What was that? What feeling was that? And then expand on your feeling vocabulary. I felt overwhelmed. I felt disappointed. I felt anxious. I felt hopeful. I felt conflicted. I felt confused, lonely, or even peaceful. Those are expanding your vocabulary. It's not going to happen overnight, but it really does need to happen. So you need to name the emotions so that they can exist. That's really important. And then a next step is allow yourself small, safe moments of feeling. This is very important because you must begin to have small, manageable experiences. See, the problem with people that shut down is they got unmanageable. Nobody ever modeled to them controlling their emotions. The Bible says the fruit of the Spirit, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. They never learned how to have self-control over their emotions. And so you can start with moments like feeling pride when you accomplish something, feeling gratitude for small blessings, feeling gratitude when somebody does something for you. Feeling gratitude is a very, very important way to be able to start with a small moment. Feeling joy in nature, in a sunset, in music, in beauty. Feel some joy. Allow yourself to feel some joy. Feeling moved by a story. My 80-year-old friend who I talked about last week actually is watching a TV program, and it's causing him to have some emotion because he's asking God to help him feel again. He wants to feel again. And so you can get that from a video, from a movie. Let yourself feel. Feeling moved by try to feel empathy. Try to get in another person's shoes. Try to be able to see what they're feeling. See if you can match what they're feeling. That's a really good important step. And feeling the warmth of a hug. You know, at my church, everybody hugs everybody. And it's just a hugging church. And everybody feels great after a hug. So try to find people you can hug. That's very, very good. They're emotionally these activities here are emotionally safe, and they build your confidence. You start to believe feeling doesn't destroy, it actually enriches. So that's a part of it. Next, you learn to express your emotions without fear. Remember, you couldn't express your emotions because you were afraid. And so you can do this by writing down your thoughts, writing down what you're feeling, you know, writing down what your body is telling you. You can share your feelings with a trusted friend, somebody who's not going to cause you a problem. You can admit that you don't feel, but you'd like to somebody. You can say, I'm starting to feel, and you know what? I'm afraid to feel. You can allow yourself to cry in small moments. That's what's happened to my 80-year-old friend. Don't stop the crying, whatever you do. You can talk to God openly without filters, and you can ask God to help you to feel. That's one of the most critical things, is to ask God to help you to feel. Emotional awareness is always rooted in emotional pain, never personality. It's not because you're shy or you're whatever. It is because you were traumatized. And so healing requires you gently exploring the original wounds. You've got to look at your original wounds. You've got to talk about what happened to you as a child. That's what we do in my groups. And when these wounds are talked about, and the people in the group are accepting and approving, it really is very healing. The next thing you need to do is to build safe, emotionally healthy relationships. That's the most healing thing you can do, is have emotionally healing relationships. And because people that are shut down, people that have trouble identifying their feelings, they really don't know how to be in relationship with feelings. And so they need healthy relationships. They need safe relationships. Like, start with someone who will listen to you without judgment, someone who will not punish you for having feelings, with someone who welcomes your feelings without fear. You don't have to be afraid they're going to judge you or punish you. Someone who is patient enough to let the process take some time. And so God showed me how to put these groups together. So in the book, I talk about a reparenting group. The group actually heals each other, and it's pretty exciting to watch. The next step is you need to have a realization that emotional shutdown usually becomes with shame. And if you're going to dismantle shame, I had total amounts of shame. If you're going to dismantle shame, then you're going to have to talk about it. Talking about shame is the way you get rid of shame. If you bring it into the light, instead of leaving it in the darkness, you'll get healed slowly. But the more you talk about it, the more you're going to get healed. And now the next step is to build tolerance for emotional disconnection. In other words, as you start to feel, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to feel real easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. So the truth is feeling again at first is like, having a leg that's gone to sleep and trying to walk on it. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be, difficult and even frustrating. But if your goal is to not suppress your emotions under any conditions, because if you do, you'll have to start over again, so to speak. It'll be harder. So what you want to do is sit with sadness without drowning. You want to feel anxiety without panicking. You don't want to panic when you feel anxiety. You want to feel anger without exploding. You don't want to explode. You want to experience joy without rejecting it. You don't want to reject joy. You want to let yourself feel present without running away. So it's really important that you do this slowly but effectively. You want to celebrate. You know, when you start to feel like my 80-year-old friend, you want to celebrate. You want to be able to have moments that you feel, and then you celebrate them. Thank you, God. Thank you, you know. You want to say thank you to yourself. And then you want to invite God into the places where you didn't feel. You want to invite God into where you were shutting down. You want to invite God into shame. You want to, God, He understands why you shut down. He understands your wounds, and God understands everything that you've been through. So you can ask God to help you, and that's critical. And that there's Ezekiel 36:26, I will give you a new heart, and I will put a tender, responsive spirit within you. So God knows what you've been through. He knows how to thaw out your frozen heart. And emotional numbers may have been the way you survived, but it doesn't have to be the way that you live for the rest of your life. Learning to feel again takes time. It is a gradual awakening that allows you to have relationships, allows you to have a spiritual relationship, a spiritual life, a great relationship with God. You'll understand yourself better, you'll like yourself better, and if you will make this life-changing decision that you want to feel again, that you really want to feel again, you will have the life you've always wanted. You will have the relationships that are life-giving, life-producing. You won't feel numb. You won't feel that you don't have good relationships with your spouse and your children and God. You will feel excitement, passion, love, and you'll be able to have a much better life because you chose to feel